The first notion that the Diamond Sutra advises us to throw away, to transcend, is the notion of self. And this can be done by the practice of looking. According to the equation A not being A, that is why it can be truly called A. A bodhisattva who thinks that she is bodhisattva is not a true bodhisattva. Because that thinking implies the discrimination of the mind. Helping living beings. And you can still that you are helping living beings. You are not really helping living beings. You are helping yourself. Making a donation. The other day we spoke at length as the emptiness of donation, of giving. Making a donation with the idea that I am the donator and the other person is the recipient of the donation. That is not a true donation in the spirit of Dana Paramita. Paramita means crossing over to the other shore. And to practice giving is one of the 6 ways to cross the stream of birth and death, to cross the stream of ill-being in order to arrive on the shore of well-being. But the donation, the gift, should be made in the spirit of non-discrimination. Equanimity is the word. The emptiness of giving. In the act of giving, the highest act of giving, you don't see you don't discriminate against the giver and the object given and the person who receives. You see that you are one with the object of your gift, and the receiver is one with you and with that object also, like the emptiness of transmission. Our parents transmit to us this body, but this body is our parents. So the transmitters and the transmitted are one, and also the receiver are one. That is why we call it the emptiness of transmission. Here it is the emptiness of giving. The giver, the object given, and the recipient. There is no distinction anymore, and that is the highest form of giving. There is no discrimination. I give as a very natural act of a bodhisattva, and that is why I am not caught by the idea that I am the giver and you are the one who received the donation. You should be grateful to me. It is like the right hand helping the left hand. It never say, I am the right hand, you are the left hand. I am helping you, so you should remember that fact. You should not forget that. So the right hand never acts like that, never thinks like that. That is why in the right hand there is the wisdom of non-discrimination. There is the spirit of equanimity. So in a loving relationship, there is the action to offer happiness. There is the action of removing the pain. There is the action of being joyful. But all this kind of action is done in a spirit of equanimity. There is no me, there is no you. we belong to the same wonderful reality. And that is why during the act of giving, if the spirit of equanimity is there, if the wisdom of non-discrimination is there, giving is truly dana paramita. And it brings you to the shore right away, because the spirit of equanimity, of non-discrimination is very powerful. It transcends all notion of self and non-self. Not only it transcends the concept A, but it transcends the self, the notion of non-A. A and B and C, all of that are transcended. In psychotherapy, we tend to help the person to get a healthy self. If we look deeply, we can see that psychotherapy is going very much in the same direction with Buddhist meditation. Because the work of the practice, the work of psychotherapy is first of all to help a person to have awareness of self. You have to observe yourself to some extent in order to become aware of your presence. And without being there, how can you recognize the presence of others? But there are those of us who are incapable of recognizing the presence of other people around because they are not really there. They don't practice being aware of their body, of their feelings, and so on. So the second object of psychotherapy is the empathic awareness of others. You recognize yourself as being there, as the base. And then after you are present, you are in the position to recognize the presence of other people around you. Before that, you seem not to recognize their presence. But this is not only the awareness of the physical presence of others, but the empathic. Because you know that you are a living being with your sorrow and with your pain. And that is why when looking around, you can recognize other living beings with their sorrow and their pain, their suffering also. Because you understand something of yourself. That is why you begin to understand something of the other around you. And finally, the third object of psychotherapy is to create to have a compassionate relationship with others. your relationship with others is not just to exploit them, to make use of them, to fight them, to destroy them. But it is the kind of relationship having compassion as energy, because you know that if there is a compassionate relationship, there will be less suffering and there will be more happiness for you and for others. So I think all psychotherapists agree with these three things as the goal of psychotherapy. And we know that in the practice of mindfulness, we can cultivate these three things easily, because we know how to make use of our mindful steps, our mindful breathing, and our mindful walking. Breathing in, breathing out mindfully, we become aware of our body, of our breathing, of our feelings. That is awareness of self. And we know that we have suffering, we have hope, we have other kind of afflictions. We know something about ourselves just because of our capacity of touching ourselves deeply with mindfulness. And when we can do that, we'll be able to recognize other living beings around us with their sorrow, with their fear, with their suffering, with their hope, and so on. And that is empathic awareness of others. You recognize them as living beings, having difficulties, having hopes, having sorrows. And when you see you like other people around you with all these kind of things, compassion can be possible. The method given by the Buddha is to remove the suffering, to cultivate well-being. Well-being here can be described as mental health for psychotherapy, mental health. We know that when we have a low self-esteem, mental health is not there. And we try our best in order to remove that low self-esteem and to tell the person to how to cultivate the opposite of low self-esteem. With low self-esteem, you don't have mental health. But what about high self-esteem? High self-esteem is a form of mental illness. You have lost you have lost the real contact with reality. And that is why you have your high self-esteem. And we know that there are people around us. They imagine things about themselves. And they look down on other living beings. We humans, we look down on other species. We have that kind of problem. We think animals are created for us to eat. We can do whatever we want with animals, vegetables and minerals. We are not really very healthy in that respect. We imagine things. How about the other esteem? Not the complex of inferiority, not the complex of superiority. And how about the complex or the idea that you are completely equal to everyone? That, in the teaching of the Buddha, is also sickness. As far as it is still based on the notion of self. I am equal to him. I am not less good than him. It seems, it sounds like okay. No low self-esteem, no high self-esteem, but it is also the sign that you are still caught in the notion of self. In the Buddhist teaching, to consider yourself as higher than the other person is a wrong perception. To consider yourself as lower than the other person is a wrong perception. But to consider yourself as equal to the other person, it is also a wrong perception. There is a notion that is called the wisdom of samatha. Equality. According to this wisdom, you share the same ground of being with all other living beings. If the other person has the seed of Buddhahood, you also have it. If the other person has the capacity of becoming completely enlightened, you have also that capacity. If the other person has the capacity of loving and being happy, you also have it, because you share the same ground of being.